over the years, many requests for us to raise our bar at Paul Smith's and offer something more. So this is a story of us, listening to you. The faculty design team, many of you know these faculty. They are some of our very best. And this was a committee that was formed somewhere in 2017, 2018, chaired by Dan Kelting, director of AWI, joined by Karen Edwards, Mel Johnson, Brett McLeod, Craig Maluski, and Becky Sutter, sort of a multidisciplinary faculty team. And the goal was to design something for our first master's program that really met the needs of a variety of our students in the environment. It's clearly focused on the environment, but the goal was a program that could be useful to as many students within the environment as possible. So they put together this three concentration program that we'll talk about in just a minute, submitted it to the state, and the state passed it really quickly. And then we kind of jumped into this rapid implementation mode from September 2019 to May 2020. And I joined the story really in September of 2019 after I moved away from the Watershed Steward program and landed back on the faculty. So with a sort of a committee of many faculty and staff, in about 8 months, we put this program together from essentially a paper plan that went to the state to something that actually could admit students the following May. So in about 8 months, we pulled it all together in the midst of this COVID pandemic, and we're able to launch this program in May. So really a tremendous effort by a lot of people. So we asked ourselves when we were designing it, what needs should the masters meet? And we talked about the alumni who are hungry to learn more, but there were also many people in the North Country and in the DEC in particular, and really in our colleague competitors, perhaps other colleges like ESF. They've heard of us. Our name is out there in the environment. So these are non-PSC people out there in the environmental professions who have heard about Paul Smith's and wondered about it and wanted to participate in what makes Paul Smith special. So not only did we meet the needs of alumni, but also everyone who's heard about us too. So we wanted to do something that was an online program, a distance-based program, but didn't become generic, didn't become an online sort of a program that anyone could do where people were anonymous. So we wanted to make sure that it was experiential and true to the spirit and the mission and the values of Paul Smith's College. We didn't want to become a generic grad program. We wanted to retain its involvement and connection to the community as well. But we also wanted to create a program that would create community. So to create a new community of learners, just like you all experienced when you were Paul Smith students, this tight bond of your fellow students and faculty is really what makes Paul Smith special when we hear about, when we talk to our alumni. So we wanted a personal touch. And we also knew that many of the master's students are going to be working. They're going to be embedded in careers. They can't just stop what they're doing and come back to Paul Smith's and come back to the North Country, even though they might want to. They might have families, they might have existing careers and jobs that they could not uproot and stop. And we knew that people, some of our master's students would probably want to kind of bump their careers up, upgrade their careers, move from a technical position, maybe a field-based position, to one that would be a leader at the leadership level or administrative level in whatever agency they're in. And yet, at the same time, we didn't want to preclude our current undergraduate students from just sticking around for another year or two while they were in place, while they're in the student mode, before they had actually established their first career. So we wanted to make sure, to see if this program could be valuable to both kinds of students. And we think we got it right, but Sarah will tell us if we managed to do that. So a lot of different needs that we're trying to balance when we designed the master's program. Well, when we were designing this as well, we decided, the faculty team decided that this first master's would be firmly centered and targeted toward practitioners. So this is a master's program that is not a pure science master's program that's going to develop research skills. It's for practitioners who are embedded in careers, who want to get those sort of career-ready skills or skills that are embedded in the world of practice that would be immediately applicable and applicable. So the other point about this program is that it's a natural resources policy and management theme. The concentrations are there. The three concentrations: aquatic resource management, forest resource management, sustainable communities, are really important concentrations that add context and a little bit of specific content. But the main theme, most of the program is really natural resources policy and management. So we think that that's a broad enough theme to be applicable to a lot of different career applications. And the other thing is, if it's for people who care about the Adirondacks, who want to learn more about the Adirondacks, but of course it's not limited to the Adirondacks. We realize that that would essentially limit the value of the program. So we're using this Adirondack context as a setting for investigation into natural resources issues that are applicable in a variety of settings. So we wanted to not ignore the Adirondacks, because that's what makes us so special, but we didn't want to limit the applicability of the lessons to just the Adirondacks. So it's this balance between Adirondacks as an example for concepts that are broadly applicable. So the nuts and bolts of the program, it's pretty standard for a master's program, 32 credits. But I think the thing that makes our program stand out is that you can actually do it in one calendar year. And that's very, very attractive to some of our students, because they feel, they want to get back into to grad school, but they don't want to be in it forever. They want to have a clear sort of exit strategy. They can get in it, they can work hard, and then in a year later, they can have this degree and move on and get the benefit of it. So we are finding, though, it's designed for 1 year, but we are finding that some of our students do better stretching it out to 2 years, and that's absolutely fine as well. It is a 90% online program, but we do have 3 on-campus residencies, a 2-week one that's at the beginning, the first summer, and then a couple of weekends toward the middle and the end part of the program. And we were successful with our 2-week summer residency, but unfortunately COVID made us shut down this one in December. We were about to run, but we decided it was best for everyone to shift to online for this past December. And in the future, we hope that that's not going to be the case. So obviously, if you're doing a distance-based master's program, you can study from home, you can keep your job, you can keep earning money, you can keep a relationship and your kids, all the responsibilities of family life or pets or your farm, you can keep that going. So it's quite flexible. Students are able to study mostly, sort of on their own, but we do have some meetings that are in the evenings. So that's usually works around people's work schedules. Deb is going to talk to us about the 3 concentrations a bit later, but the point about these 3 is that all 3 are really important and topical, and turns out they're quite popular and attractive to students. Water, forest conservation, and sustainable communities. They're all touching a nerve, and students are finding these really attractive. Another program feature is that it's not a research thesis. Some students, when they think about a master's, they envision, oh, wow, I got to do a research thesis, which is original work and is a 1 or 2 year project. So this is a practitioner and professional master's degree. So the format for professional masters isn't usually thesis generated or thesis centered. It's project centered. So projects that are real world projects that you can do efficiently and effectively and conclude them within one or 2 semesters maximum. So that tends to be what distinguishes a professional master's from a traditional thesis-based master's. And there's 2 options in our final project. You can either go for an individual final project that's based on your own work and could be embedded in the agency that you're currently employed in. Like we've got a gentleman who's in a soil and water conservation district. He runs one in Western New York, so his project is embedded in his current work. So it makes great sense. And then, but over half the students this year are doing a PSC structured final project that where we can pick a topic that's really, really complex and valuable and exciting. For this year, we're looking at the incredible visitor use phenomenon that we're seeing in the high peaks. So it's a multi-dimensional project that students from all 3 concentrations can find a way to add value to. So that's an important program feature. And you can see how all these are lined up in this roadmap. The semesters are carefully designed to sort of plug into each other in a sequence. So students will arrive on campus and to start, most of them will, I should say, to start their cohort in the summer. So we start in May for our summer semester. Many of you were, if you were natural resources students, you had a summer semester at Paul Smith. So it's a similar footprint. You come in May and you begin your program. You start the first several weeks of the program in May online, and then you come to Paul Smith sometime in June for this 2-week intensive. There are 4 courses in this first summer, so it's a full-time semester of 11 graduate credits spread over about 13 to 14 weeks. So it's a really, really busy summer for our students. And it doesn't really get a whole lot easier for the other semesters as you kind of walk through it. The fall semester after that, after the students have built some of their field data gathering skills in the summer, in that summer intensive, after they studied environmental ethics, after they learned the basics of natural resource planning, and after they've discussed the various sometimes competing ecosystem services and the way to value those, then we move into a more of a traditional fall semester where they're back home, of course, studying via distance, and they learn the next step of the natural resources management kind of process, monitoring and evaluation, and then they start the electives that are part of their concentration. So the forest resource courses, or the aquatic courses, or the sustainable communities courses. They have a GIS course to kind of bring those skills up to level. And then they formally begin the process of designing this final project, whether it's an individual project or more of a PSC kind of group project. The spring semester, and that's exactly where we are now for our first cycle, the students will be fully embedded in doing this final project. It's called the project execution phase. And then they have their 2 remaining concentration courses. So the 2 remaining forest resource courses, or aquatic resource courses, or sustainable communities courses. And then they end their program the second summer with a reporting phase where they give a formal presentation, they write it all up, they write whatever their project is up, they'll get some feedback, and they'll probably have to do some revisions, and then they submit their final project toward the end of the summer. So that's a sort of a 1-year cycle. Now, what we found in practice is we actually have had some students. We had 1 student join us this fall who's just doing her concentration electives. And then we just had 5 more grad students join us this spring. So they're doing their 2 concentration electives this spring. And then they'll join the next 2021 group in May. So we hope to get another 12 or 15 students who will start in summer and kind of work our way through that cycle. Okay. Okay, so you've just heard a little bit about what the program is, sort of what's under the hood, and so what can it do for us? The point of it is to deepen what you've already got, to build on what you've already got. You can come into this with a somewhat light background in environmental science. It's probably easier if you have some background in environmental science, biology, or forestry, or wildlife. But we do have students who are coming in with degrees in aviation. I've got a student who's talked to me. Her degree is in the fine arts. She's a weaver, so she wants to do a real career transition. So we're talking to them about ways that they can kind of come up to speed with some of the science and the math and the statistics, so they feel comfortable when they get here. But the idea is that it deepens this whatever undergraduate degree you've got. It kind of adds an environmental consideration, environmental dimension to whatever the students are starting with as their undergraduate studies. It surrounds you with a group of motivated peers. I think this is the value that so many of the grad students are telling us means so much to them. They don't feel alone anymore in their studies. They found a new group of colleagues who, at least for this 1 year or maybe 2 years, are these incredible conversation partners for them. Give them new ideas, expand their network, make them feel part of our learning community. And of course, we as faculty become also part of your peer group. So it really is an enrichment for people in the middle of their careers. It builds a professional network. So if you're a student coming right out of undergraduate, think about this. Jordan here is in this slide. He's He's a veteran soil and water conservation district manager. Now he's someone you can learn about that entire career from, and somebody who can provide a reference for you potentially, or somebody who can connect you with possibilities. So it's really a fantastic method for students at all levels to expand their network. Provides a natural resources policy experience, especially for those students who really don't have that yet. Either they're coming directly from undergraduate, or maybe they're doing a career shift. We've got a former military pilot who's in our program now. He doesn't really have a background in natural resources policy yet. So through the final project and through his coursework, he's really developing that first experience in natural resources policy, which is so valuable to him. And then lastly, we talked about leadership and kind of bumping up from a technician or a field level, or someone who is accessing information directly in the environment, to perhaps developing these leadership skills where you can become a leader in your agency, be a supervisor, or really take that step up in the career. So that's what we're hoping this will provide you with, that breadth to allow you to make that leap. So back to the first summer, like I said, we transcended COVID. We didn't know really when we would be able to welcome students back. We negotiated with our administration about when we would hold this two-week practicum. The college was totally shut down. I mean, it was like tumbleweeds blowing across the quad. No one was here. And, to kind of restart all the systems, get the food service semi-functional, to basically get dorm space available again. Everything was in mothballs. And so we did have to push back the date a little bit, but the COVID crisis let up enough that we were able to do it. Of course, at that point in the summer, Franklin County, New York was like Shangri-La. This is the place you wanted to be in the middle of a world pandemic, because really it hadn't touched us yet. So we were this place to go to kind of flee from what was going on in the rest of the world. So the students were super happy to get up here, and we were able to pull it off. I think that they felt maybe a little lonely on campus, because they were truly the only students on campus. I mean, they had the place to themselves. Maybe they wanted a little bit more of the college vibe going on, but they were all happy to at least be able to be there together and to develop these relationships, and to meet the faculty, and to go on the trails and gather the data, to use field equipment, to paddle canoes in the St. Regis canoe area, do the things that really are a PSC experience that we all remember and love. So the 12 students were a balance of mid-career and recent graduates. I think it was, Jody will tell us a little bit more about their makeup. I think we had some who were not PSC alums, and some who were. And the faculty really were a fantastic team. Brett likes to say these are our best faculty, and no slight against any of the other faculty who aren't included, because we do have good faculty at Paul Smith, but it was a really strong group. Brett, who everyone knows and is just great at so many things. Deb Naybor taught the research design and methods course. She tag teamed with Mel Johnson, who's a GIS expert, and Deb is kind of a multi-dimensional expert of many fields. Justin Waskowitz was one of our newest and really tip-top forestry professors. I taught environmental ethics. And then we supplemented this with guests from all of our networks. I brought in environmental philosophers from ESF and from Vermont and other places. And there were many guest speakers that each of the faculty members brought in for their particular course. So it was more than just us faculty. Maybe that would have been enough. We really tried to kind of broaden it and give them even more exposure and experience to different voices. So it was 2 weeks, but it felt like maybe 4. I mean, it was exhausting. Sarah's smiling. It was a long days, long nights. So I think they got their full value. So, and this is a shot from Bear Pond when Kurt Steger and the grad students did some pond coring and talked about the ecological history of Bear Pond. So where are we now? So it's 2021. And last fall, we had a great faculty in our summer block, but then we added even more fantastic faculty, headlined by Brendan Wiltsey. Many of you know, recently was hired by the AWI as their aquatic specialist, but half of his position is to be our aquatic specialist in our master's program. Becky Sutter, a longtime faculty member at Paul Smith's, who taught our water law program after studying at Columbia and getting a certificate in water issues and management. Joe Henderson, who's a fantastic, one of our more recent faculty, who's super dynamic, and students really respond well to him. He's teaching some of our sustainable communities courses. So we really bumped up our faculty sort of capacity tremendously just in the fall. And what we're finding is that the faculty are hungry to teach in our master's program. You can imagine that. They really want to teach the grad students, and so far it's been wonderful. And our final project, I talked to you about the High Peaks Visitor Impact Study, but I want to point out and highlight and just say thank you to the PSC alums who've been instrumental in that project, including Scott Van Mayer, Tate Connor. There may have been other alums, but those two were really have been great partners in developing this project. So giving back to our grad students, it's a great story. So, I wanted to also tell you the news, this bottom bullet. What we did with this model, and we have 3 concentrations. What we did was we turned those concentrations into graduate certificates as well. So if you don't want a full master's degree, if all you really are looking for is the content in the aquatic resource management, forest resource management, and sustainable communities concentrations, you don't have to do the entire master's. Maybe that's sufficient for you. So essentially what we did is we took the 3 courses in each of those, and then we said choose one other course from one of the other 2 areas, and then you've got a 4-course grad certificate. And we've also made that available to our undergrad students. So starting next fall, if you're one of our best undergrad students, you can actually get a grad certificate and get graduate credit as an undergraduate student. You graduate with both a bachelor's and a graduate certificate. And then guess what? You're 30% or 40% of the way toward a master's. So if you want to stick around after that grad certificate, your master's degree is a lot cheaper and will happen a lot faster. So we think that that's going to be a real value to our current students, but also to anyone else who just wants to start with a certificate and then maybe consider the master's later. Okay, I'm going to catch my breath and pass the baton to Deb Naybor.
Hi, everybody. Good to not see you or see you eventually when you turn your cameras on. I went to Paul Smith's from 75 to 77 in the terminal forestry program. I was a stumpy. Got out of Paul Smith's, went to work as a survey technician, and ended up becoming a licensed land surveyor in Western New York for over 30 years, hired a lot of Paul Smith graduates. Got by with my associate's degree for my entire career, but then decided to go back to school and actually got a bachelor's in literature, one of my other loves, and decided, hey, this education thing is kind of fun once you're an adult and get the hang of it. So I went on to get 2 masters and then a PhD in human geography at University of Buffalo. And in 2015, I got hired to come back to Paul Smith's and teach, which it was my dream job. Like many of you, I never wanted to leave the Adirondacks. I never wanted to leave Paul Smith's. And so to be able to come back was really incredible. And working with the undergraduates was absolutely awesome. I had students like Sarah, who was one of my top students and just blew me away with her work. And then to learn that we're going to have a master's program, and I get to hang on to some of these students a little longer, and also meet some new advanced graduate students coming in or coming back to Paul Smith. So the program is natural resource conservation management. So many of you are familiar with the undergraduate degree, but we have 3 concentrations. So the student needs to pick one of the 3, and one of the complaints we hear is they like them all. So, can I take classes in every concentration? But we do force them at some point to make a choice. So we have the forest resource management class, and they have electives in natural resource economics, which I teach on both the undergraduate and the graduate level to the forestry elective students. We have a forest policy and we have forest resource assessment. The aquatic resource management track has water law and policy, restoration of aquatic systems, and assessment of aquatic resources. So you can see these are all very practical, very hands-on, very focused on things that you need to know some of the background as far as policy, but you also need to know how these things work in the professional world. And then sustainable communities, where we talk about sustainable development, strategic communication, which is so critical, especially today, and then building collaborative communities. I'm really excited that I'm teaching the Building Collaborative Communities class this spring. And many of you alum probably remember the St. Gabriel's Church right across from the entrance to Paul Smith's, the little white Catholic church. That's going to be the focus of our Sustainable Communities project. And so we're going to be hitting on you alumni to get some opinions on what should be done with that building. Paul Smith has once again gotten title to the property. It was originally given by Paul himself to the Catholic Church, and it's absolutely an incredible building. We're going to be looking at how the building can be used sustainably from an environmental and economic and from a social point of view. So we're going to be asking to do some interviews and also some questionnaires of what you think should happen out there. Can I forward this, or do you?
Yep, no, I'm trying to, here we go.
Okay, so our Sustainable Communities track is near and dear to my heart, although I have a degree in forestry. I was a surveyor for a long time. I'm all about sustainable living. I live in a tiny house. I build sustainable buildings. I tinker around with solar panels and solar water heaters and any kind of maker gadgets I can get into. So the idea was to have a track that would work with other communities and build with them so that our professionals would be able to work with various organizations, towns, governments, or groups of people of interest. So I think this is we have a really popular track we have 6 students out of 18 in the Sustainable Communities program right now. And we really look forward in teaming with real communities. The other 2 tracks are really great if you're already working in the profession or you want to break into those professions of forestry or aquatics. These tracks will take what you already know and build on that to help you get ahead in your career or change careers. So our grad students are amazing people. I got to work with them for a couple of weeks this summer. They come from New York City, from the areas up here. Many of them, 4 of them are my students who I got to work with and continue with. But they all have different talents, different aspects. And the neatest thing that I saw with them was how quickly they formed a cohort. They really became a family unit during the 2 weeks they were on campus, and they planned things on their own. They worked together, they helped each other. They pulled off an amazing final presentation when they were on campus without ever having really known each other and coming from very different walks of life and career choices. So I think part of the joy of being an instructor in the grad program is being able to work with these incredible students. And there's a big difference between an undergrad and a grad student. You know, the undergrads just want to finish. The grad students really want to be there, and they really want to soak up that knowledge. And so it's always a great pleasure to teach grad students.
Okay, so we'll hand it over to Sarah.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the introduction, Eric. As you just said, I'm Sarah Daugherty. I recently graduated in 2017 with an undergrad in integrated studies from Paul Smith College, and was so in love with the place I never left, and began as the barn manager for what some of you may know as the Paul Smith College Draft Horse program here. In considering the master's program, there were kind of several big questions that I had, and really turned to the faculty and the staff here to seek some answers to those what ifs that were sitting on my mind. So a few of the things that I really were thinking about when choosing Paul Smith were, how could I do school and balance my hobbies while also having a full-time job? And thankfully, Paul Smith has a really great academic career success support team that has made it really possible for me to kind of figure out my schedule, accommodate not only that time that I need for my personal life, but also the schoolwork and the workload. And another thing that was really troublesome for me was I had been out of college for a few years. And so I was really worried about how I could integrate back into the rigor that I know was required of me as an undergrad, and then some, knowing that a master's degree was probably going to ask that much more. And through working again with great faculty and staff here at the college, it was a really smooth transition. I've found that it wasn't as difficult as I otherwise would have anticipated. And thankfully, through time management, sitting down, a great online program that is full of opportunity to communicate with the staff and the faculty one-on-one has made coming back to school really easy. And I was really thankful for being a part of a program that allowed me, somebody who hadn't been back in college for a few years, to have such an easy transition. As somebody who is also working as an educator now, I really do value education as a whole. The student experience, being somebody who wants to continue learning, I really wanted to see myself get a master's degree to not only prove to myself that I could do it, but also to gain that credibility in my current position and in possible positions for the future that I may be interested in. And by choosing Paul Smith College Master's program, I really feel like I'm getting, as Eric said, those network connections. I'm building on my resume skills. I'm learning different ways to look at the environment and forms of sustainable management of natural resources that I wasn't necessarily thinking about as an undergrad when I came to study here. And lastly, the biggest thing that I was worried about is I really want a program that allowed me to continue to study the things that I already loved in a more focused way. And the master's degree really took my foundation as an undergrad and allowed me to focus in on those concentrations of sustainable communities, forestry, aquatics. I myself am enrolled in the sustainable communities concentration, and playing off of a lot of the stuff I did as an undergrad with folks like Deb in our tiny house building classes, and with folks like Eric learning about climate change. This master's program really took some loose ends that I had maybe as an undergrad and allows me to now see, you know, my career and my field in a very different lens that I wouldn't have been able to if I hadn't enrolled in the program. And so it's been a really enriching experience, and it's expanded my horizons, and I really look forward to continuing this spring and into the summer, and hopefully finishing within the year. And again, thank you everybody so much for tuning in tonight. Back to, I think, Jody.
Hey, Sarah, just before we get to Jody, I think, you know, it was easy for you to transition to grad school because you're ready for it. You know, so give yourself some credit because, yeah, I mean, you're a tiger when you get in there. You really are devouring the program. So, you know, give yourself some credit there. Okay, so Jody.
Hi, everyone. I am absolutely convinced that after you heard Eric, Deb, and Sarah go, you probably want to know how to apply at this point, right? So we'll talk a little bit about the admissions perspective, but first I want to give you a little background on really where our students are coming from and kind of how we're reaching out to students. So for this first cohort that came in, everybody really relied on alumni. They relied on you guys for understanding the value of Paul Smith's and the connection and wanting to come back. And so that's really how we made up that first class. I think it's about 55% alums, and we are still reaching out to a lot of alums. But this semester, we're also really diversifying it. We have an awesome marketing team, and they've created all this beautiful branding. We're doing search engine optimization. We're doing paid Facebook ads and all kinds of wonderful lead lists and fun outreach. And so at this point, about 50%, a little bit more than 50% of the current students come from the New York and Vermont area, but we're also seeing a lot of interest from like Virginia, Florida, Oregon, California. And so I think as we expand the advertising, we'll start to really attract a lot of interested students that are not alumni and are not necessarily from this region and already have a connection with Paul Smith's. So applying, you know, it's grad school, it's a little bit different. We do have a free application on the website. If you guys haven't checked out the grad program website on the main Paul Smith's page, go check it out. You'll see a lot of the stuff that Eric shared here tonight, but there's a lot of good information there. So you'll find the application there. And then of course we need all of your college transcripts from any college that you attended. We need a statement of purpose. And when you go to the admission requirement webpage, you'll get a little more information about that, what that should include. We'll need a resume or a CV about what you're currently doing, as well as 2 letters of recommendation. We don't require the GRE, but you know, Eric and Deb do ask that you have some familiarity with GIS and statistics, and they even provide some links on the website on how to kind of get up to speed in those areas. And so once you apply, you basically work with me for the rest of the documents. So when you fill out the application, you don't have to have everything ready right then and there. You do the application, you get in our system, I start to reach out to you and say, hey, here's the things that we need. One thing I really like about how we're doing this, and I think it is just the typical Smitty community way, is that once you contact me, I typically connect you with Eric right away, and he spends a considerable amount of time with really every interested student on your history, your past education, where you want to go. Like he mentioned, the interested student we have who is doing like fiber arts and textiles and wanting to switch careers. I mean, that's a huge jump. And so having somebody to really talk to and meet with about that process is really the beauty of this program. I'm excited to be part of it. So check out the website, look at all the great resources that are there. Reach out to me if you want to talk to anybody who is teaching in the program, if you want more information on the program. Even if you live somewhere and you know people who might be interested in it, I think our alumni can really play an important part in helping us grow this program. There's a lot of room here, and I think we're going to boom in the grad market, and I think Paul Smith's is going to take a pretty big leap into this. I really see this going somewhere, and a lot of that's going to come from your connections as well. So reach out to me. I'm happy to send you. I can mail you information if you want to share it with folks, or if you just want to have it because you're excited about all this growth and potential. So that's it. Thank you for being here tonight and listening.
Oh, yeah, we do have a question, but go ahead and finish up.
Yeah, I was going to read the question if you guys are ready.
Go ahead.
Sure.
All right, so Jim asks, how close or what aspects of landscape architecture does the Sustainable Communities program look at or work with and toward?
Sure, and I can answer that. Hi, Jim. Being a land surveyor for so long, of course, I'm really interested in topography and how land adds or subtracts to any project or land planning that you're doing. I know during this summer, the students were working out at the Vic on various projects, mainly focused on forestry, but they also use GIS to do some work and get some spatial information. With the project I'm doing this spring with the church, I'm really hoping we can do some landscape planning, because the area around the church is wooded. It's got great grade change upward as you get towards Church Pond. And I'd really like to get involved in having the students look at some ideas on how they can use those natural features of the land. But we don't have enough time to cover in-depth landscape architecture in particular. But if you have expertise in that, we certainly would love to talk to you about that.
It's kind of coincidental. Jody, I thought that it was the same gentleman that emailed us, what was it, this morning, with a background in landscape architecture. So this is the second landscape architecture question we've had in a day. It's really interesting. I think I wanted to bring up another sort of locus of students that we're finding. We're finding a lot of students from the New York metro area are reaching out to us. And could it be that it's been a tough year to live in the New York metro area and people are thinking about the Adirondacks as a way to change their lives? It's become a trend. Several, in fact, some of our students in Sarah's cohort are from the New York metro area. We have a high school teacher of earth science in Queens, who is considering this as a career change, but he's full-time teaching in Queens environmental science in high school. So it's interesting. We've got this growing interest from the New York tri-state metro area, and I think that might be a trend.
And honestly, I'd be all for starting a master's in landscape architecture. So I worked for landscape architecture as a surveyor for a while. I think it's a great fit for Paul Smith.
That's a great question. So Heather, does it work that they can just shout out the questions verbally, or do they all have to go through the chat?
We'll have to go through the question and answer portion. Jody, I know that we received an email earlier this week from an alum who's also a veteran. I can't remember his in particular questions, but is it something that we could maybe share? I feel like he wanted disaster management.
He wanted to know if we were going to have more grad programs, and then specifically about using the GI Bill.
Okay, so I can give this group, I've gotten permission, and I asked the right people, to give you a little sneak peek into what the next two graduate topics are going to be. And these are either in design, at the design phase, or the discussion phase. So let me just put it to you this way. We are in discussion phase as of today on disaster management for a grad certificate. We're in further along the road. We're in more of the design phase in a master's that's involved, that's in the sustainable tourism area. So there are at least two other ideas that are kind of moving through. Deb, if you think that landscape architecture, maybe that's something we should talk about too. But those other two have some momentum at this point. So there will be more graduate offerings, in the next year or two.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about Paul Smith is we're a small speedboat, so we can react fast. We're not an aircraft carrier like the SUNY system that takes years and years to get through from the idea phase to implementation. So my problem and Eric's problem too is we have too many ideas and not enough time to make them all work. But the nice thing is we can act on some of these great ideas that come from alumni or other people asking for programs.
And it's actually a tremendous, it's not that we do everything the alumni say, oh, we run a program in this and we'll put it together, but it's a tremendous market, very valid market signal. I mean, it's, you know, Deb and I and, you know, Craig, we could just make up programs, but if alumni are asking us for them, that tells us that there's an idea that actually exists somewhere outside of our heads. You know, we've talked, and Deb, I know you'd be excited about this too. We've talked, okay, should we do something in, you know, a writing, some kind of environmental writing? You know, we would love that, right? You know, is there a market for that? Who knows? You know, would the students be able to pay? Would it make sense for them to lay out money for a grad certificate in environmental writing, or would they just enjoy it? I don't know, but not every idea really has that sort of return on the student investment. But I think landscape architecture, disaster management, sustainable tourism, and of course our current masters. You know, I was looking at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We're putting together an infographic that's going to come out pretty soon. And I found that master's students, or people with a master's degree, on average, their salary is 20% higher than just a bachelor's alone, and their employment is higher. So there's fewer people who are unemployed as you go higher and higher and higher with your graduate degrees. It's not to say, you know, that's the case for everyone who gets one. There's an automatic ticket to higher earnings, but 20% on average, master's versus bachelor's degree, you pay for that master's degree pretty quickly.
All right, Jody, are you seeing any more questions? I'm not, but I'm on my phone because, as you may or may not know, I'm having all kinds of tech issues tonight. So if there are no more questions, or if there's nothing else that you want to share tonight, folks, you can email questions to anybody here on the panel, or you can send them directly to alumni@paulsmith.edu, and I'd be happy to get them out to the right people.
Well, another question just dropped.
I was just going to say, did something just okay, great.
Tara is asking, what kind of jobs would you be looking into with this program? I graduated with a degree in RATE. I've been working with vet tech since '96 and would like to make a career change, but I'm afraid that since I have not been working in this field, that it would take too long for me to work my way up the ranks.
Right. So this is a really good question, and a bit challenging to answer, but I'm going to take a stab at it. So this job, or this credential, prepares. It's a broad credential. It prepares people for careers in a variety of environmental occupations, including, you know, NGOs, environmental organizations, etc. So, for instance, here's an example. A job just came up, and I shared it with my grad students about a month ago, running the Adirondack Park Invasive Plant Program's aquatic invasive species program. Okay, now that's a really fantastic job, and I know people who've applied for it who are great applicants, and at least one of the people that I know who applied has a tremendous background in this field, but only has a bachelor's degree. And this person knows that they're going to be up against people with master's degrees, and that's honestly just the case, you know, the reality of it. So for this job, that's an aquatic invasive species program coordinator for the Adirondack Park Invasive Plant Program, do you necessarily need a master's degree? No. The person who had it before, I don't know if you guys know Erin Venny Volrath, she had a master's. So the bar keeps getting higher and higher. It's going to make it make you much more competitive to get a job like that. Lake Champlain Basin Program just had a job offer to run the New York side to coordinate the aquatic invasive species management for the Basin Program. So these kinds of jobs are out there in the Adirondacks, and not necessarily that you want to come up here. But the master's degree is going to be that edge, especially a master's degree from Paul Smith's. So those kinds of jobs that are program management, that are even environmental education at all of our wonderful NGOs and education institutions like the Wild Center, or all these various museums in the Vermont and New York State area, working for state agencies as an environmental educator in some of their state nature centers across the state. This would be a tremendous example, sort of step in that direction. So it certainly would help, and probably could be the deciding factor for some of the most desired jobs.
Couple of other things to add to that. One thing, nowadays you have organizations like Indeed or Monster, and you fill out an application that's posted online and you check the boxes. And they may get a good job, may get 100 or 500 applicants. And if one of those boxes is to check the master's degree, you at least get to step into the next phase. They'll eliminate people that don't have that master's degree and never even look at their applications when they get that many. Why not choose the master's degree? As an employer, as a land surveyor, I could hire people with no college education, with just experience. I could hire associate's degrees, bachelor's degrees. The master's degree is almost the new undergrad degree. Everybody in the 70s and 80s had a high school diploma. Now a lot of people have their bachelor's degree or some kind of undergrad education. The master's degree just filters out that many more. You get up to the PhD level, you're more looking at teaching, more looking at high-level research. The master's is the management, the more than a technician, less than being the CEO or the boss. So it's a good place to be when you're moving into that middle to top of your career. That master's degree really does help you.
Yeah, and I think, Tara, if you're thinking about a career change too, raw desire and interest is absolutely essential. But if you have that desire and passion and interest in a new career, more of an environmental education or environmental policy, showing that you've gone back and gotten additional current information will give you a vocabulary when you're competing for that job. If you get the interview, you can start rattling off all of the things that that you've freshly done, freshly learned, that will be so set you apart and give you a vocabulary that's a current vocabulary to bring to bear when you're trying to land a new job. So, I think it's something to think about. It's a way to help propel you into a new career rather than just relying on network, which is important, or just passion and interest. It really gives you that vocabulary and those concepts that are current.
And I think in our master's program, we also give you a portfolio. You walk out of here with reports and maps and video presentations and data that you actually collected and processed. So it's not theoretical. It's not just reading other people's works. You're actually working on projects. So
yeah, it's like a work sample.
Yeah.
Okay, we do have another question. John is asking, how does the grad certificate work, and will the post 9/11 GI Bill pay for it? So yeah. I'll address the GI Bill first, and then Eric, you can answer the other part. So John, yes, your GI Bill will work on this if you have enough benefit left on there. So you would work directly with our financial aid office to submit all that paperwork and submit your certificate and see what the hours cover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a big step when we worked through the process to ensure that, one of our students is a recent vet, to ensure that his GI Bill would work. Once we got the word that absolutely the GI Bill could apply, boy, that really was tremendously an important factor for our students. And how would it work? How would the grad certificate work? So I'm going to show you the slide with the courses that are on it, and this will be a little easier to explain. So the grad certificate would be, let's say you wanted to choose, John, I don't know which one you're interested in. Let's say it was the aquatic one. It would take 2 semesters because these courses, all of these 3 courses in each of the 3 concentrations, they are offered in fall and spring semesters. None of them are offered. This is by design. None of them are offered in the summer because we want our undergraduate students to have access to them. So you could, it's designed that in 2 semesters, a fall semester and the following spring semester, you could knock out all 3 of these courses. And then you need to take a 4th course. So you would take one of the other ones from the other 2 concentrations to be that 4th course, but they are also offered in the fall and spring semester. So with some good advising, it should all work out. And because these are all online courses that do have, Deb, when she teaches her classes, she has them meet in the evenings. Maybe it's I don't know if it's as often as once a week. Maybe it's once every couple of weeks for a chance to kind of come together and talk. But most of it, probably 80% of each of these courses, is going to be asynchronous. You can do it at your own pace. Doing papers and maybe watching presentations, and then having these guest speakers in the evening and having this opportunity to talk live if you want to in the evening, but periodically. So, and then the faculty, because we're a small college, we talk to each other. So we make sure that, okay, if Deb is, in her sustainable communities course, if she's having a meeting on every 3rd Thursday, that the other faculty are aware of that, and they don't overlap with her, so that all students can participate. So these are our undergrad students are also going to be taking these, and again, we're rolling this out for full next fall. So these are all going to be available as 100% online experiences. Right now, interestingly, like a course like Forest Policy that Brett is teaching, it is offered at both undergrad and grad levels. So he's coming up with an innovative way of capturing some of the content that he's delivering to the undergrad students, and then the grad students can view that on their own. But then he also has grad-only evening sessions to add that graduate level discussion. And then, of course, he's asking them much more complicated kinds of projects too. So hopefully that answered some of your questions. You can do it in 1 year, but you could also, stretch it out longer if you wanted to. And you just pay by the credit. So, essentially you can take as many or as few courses as you want per semester. Okay. I've got one thing I want to add, Jody. Jody and I and well, probably Deb too, will be offering a virtual, an open house for the master's program in February. But what we just went over is kind of a version of that. So you can sign up for that open house, but you want to tell them more about that, Jody?
Hold on here. Yes. So it is really similar to what we went on tonight. If you go to the website, there's a link you can click. So you do have to pre-register for it. I would say where tonight was a little more conversational, the open house really goes over details and is a little more scripted, and I think a little bit more of a robust presentation, isn't it, Eric? I think. But it's very similar.
Yeah. The thing that you're going to get if you decided to tune into the open house, I would say half of it will be similar, but you'll hear Brett talk. You'll hear I think Deb will join us, I hope, and then an o'clock Brendan. You'll hear Brendan talk. So you'll hear more faculty voices, but it's a lot of the content. Is kind of what we just went over, but you'll have a chance to ask them questions specifically.
Yeah, it digs a little deeper. So if you're interested, you should definitely check that out. Oh, that question just went away, actually, the one, they must have deleted it.
I just answered it.
Oh, okay.
So I typed her an answer on GI.
Okay.
So that's it for questions as of now.
All right.
Feel free to email any of us if you have additional questions. So.
Absolutely. I just want to thank our panelists again for being here this evening and sharing the information about our master's programs that we currently have, and, you know, letting the cat out of the bag about a couple more that might be coming. That's really awesome. I also want to just mention that a number of the people that were mentioned tonight, especially on our panel, 50% alumni are present right now. We've got Sarah Daugherty, who's an alum, Deb Naybor, who's an alum, and you'll be surprised to learn that I'm an alum, but not much of a panelist, I guess. And while I was looking at the slides that you were presenting, many of the faculty members that are working with our master's students are also alumni. Brett, Brendan, Becky, Corey, Laxton, absolutely. So we got to point that out a little bit more often, in my opinion. But anyway, thank you everyone for joining us for the Smitty Story Hour. We'll see you next time, February 11th, with Martha Vandervoort. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.